on the book. This will be my introduction to our concluding session. I will not raise any questions or any points. I think part of what he has to say will perhaps lead us on our way, and then we will have each of our three roundtable participants make their comments. Each will speak for approximately 10 minutes. And after that, we will open the floor for any comments, any ideas, anything we would like to think about together. So in his Perek Shishi, I'm reading from the Hebrew, of Sefer Hasidim, he says like this: יש ספרים אשר בערכם ופרסומם לא התוכן עיקר, כי אם הזמן המקרי שבו נתוודעו בעולם. And I'm skipping. חסרונותיהם הם מעלותיהם. אף מגרעותיהם לוקחות נפשות. הספרים האלה נותנים לנו יותר ממה שרצו מחבריהם לעצמם לתת בהם. כי הם מצבות זיכרון לרוח האומה בזמן ידוע, ודורות שלמים יראו בהם כבמחזה. בספרים ממין זה יחשב גם ספר חסידים. And then he continues. אמנם בצדק נקרא בשם ספר חסידים, כי מלא הוא לא רק חסידות דתית, כי גם חסידות החיים הכלליים, במובן הרחב של אהבת אדם היותר טהורה. הוא כולו כאין פירוש במילות שונות על ואהבת לרעך כמוך. והגשמת הכתוב הזה בכל המעשים ומקרי החיים השונים, וקולו נשמע בנעימה עדינה, ורגש עמוק מאין כמוהו. אבל הקול והנעימה והרגש יחדיו יחבאו לפעמים בערפילי ההזיה, אשר כיסו את החסידות ההיא, וישיתו כליל צלם גם על הספר הזה. סוף דבר, הספר הזה הוא יליד הרוח של הזמן ההוא, ובשימנו משטר למבחר רעיוניו ונאומיו המפוזרים בו, ובחלקנו אותם לפרקים לפי ענייניהם, איננו משווים בזה לעיניים את מחזה היהדות בזמן ההוא, עצמותה ומהותה ומעמדה, דרכיה ומנהגיה ומהלך רעיוניה, מצב השכלתה ונטיותיה ושאיפותיה הרוחניות, הכל כאשר לכל יתראה לנגד עינינו, כמו עומדת היהדות ההיא לפנינו בעצם תומה, כולה כמו שהיא. I think here at this conference we have questioned some of what he has said here, but we have also taken into consideration some of what he said here. And I think at this moment, as we turn to summarize what we've done here and plan for Sefer Hasidim 2 maybe, or 3 or 4 or 5, because I've heard a lot of different ideas about what we can do, he is perhaps a good place for us to start, and at the very, very end, I'll perhaps read you one last comment of his on Sefer Hasidim. So I now call Effie, Micha, and Elizabeth, and Elisheva, I'm sorry. Same name, right? Just different language. So Effie, Micha, and Elisheva to offer their comments. And Micha, you will be first. You want me to say first hand? Whatever.
This does not apply to Before I start reading what I wrote and before thanking the organizers, I just want to this conference started with the departure of a colleague and a friend, Ephraim Shoham-Steiner, and it's hard to say Zal, and Sefer Hasidim teaches us that כשמזכירים תלמיד חכם, אין צריך לומר זיכרונו לברכה. Don't say זיכרונו לברכה because we have what they taught us. And Elliot worked a lot on Hoshana Rabbah, and just after talking about ceremonies of Hoshana Rabbah, Sefer Hasidim has something that I think could bring some solace and comfort to all of us, and he says this: נשמות, יש להם ספרים ערוכים על השולחן, כמו שרגילים בחייהם ללמוד, כן במותם לומדים. The souls of the departers have books on their shelf, on their table, and they study these books as they study them in their lives. So, I think this is what happens. I believe. So I too wish to thank the organizers, Elizabeth, Elisheva, and Effie, the 3 E's as we've come to know, the Hebrew Aleph, 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 summarizes Aleph, Aleph, Aleph. So I wish to thank them for all the hard work and for inviting me to discuss this very rich conference. Hearing the excellent papers over the past days accented the sense I always had concerning the ambiguity of Hasidei Ashkenaz and Sefer Hasidim, what some speakers called the riddle of the book. Hasidei Ashkenaz are highly historical and highly unhistorical. They do not consciously relate to contemporary or prior Jewish or non-Jewish traditions, but exhibit such contacts left and right. Their intellectual and social interests are highly local, German in this case, maybe even only Regensburg in this case, but at the same time they are detached from any local. They represent a limited elite while being fed by and founding popular folklore. This circle is entirely new while having deep roots in prior Jewish relations. I think that these binary poles may serve as a sort of roadmap to many of the talks we've heard. Between elite and popular was explored in Elias Sif, Dudu Rothman, and Talia Fishman's paper. Between France and Germany in Ephraim Shoham-Steiner, Judah Galinsky, Rel Koshelevsky's work. Between wandering and staying at Regensburg, I almost say Bratislava. Regensburg, in Elchanan Reiner, Aruba Lieberlis Neumann, and Rainer Walzen's work. Between halacha, nomus, and moral ideal in Rami Reiner, Pinchas Roth, Talia Fishman, and Judah Galinsky again. And where we started, between book and author, in Ivan Marcus, Saskia Donitz, David Schreivitz, and Daniel Abrams, and Ruben Yitzhak work as well. Thus it seems that we are balancing between the many faces of these books. As a historical phenomenon, the best parallel I can point out, surely in Jewish history, is the book of the Zohar. Seemingly a close universe which tentacles into its own time and place as well as to earlier traditions are slowly unveiling in front of us. Both oeuvres present themselves as entirely inner Jewish, while abundant with historical references and details pulled from the shared culture with the Christian contemporaries. Both are collective works. They are not books in the modern sense of the word, and they share the same ambiguity of being historical and unhistorical at the same time. I think it's not coincidental that Yitzhak Beil, with his keen historical instincts and broad erudition, was the first to seriously investigate the actual historical and social background of both cases. Nevertheless, I think that the hallmark of this conference, in contrast to the excellent scholarship done by Beil, his colleagues, and their students, is the willingness to embrace this ambiguity and even to take advantage of it. In a way, we can title this conference, or I choose to title this conference, as the Internet Generation Research of Sefer Hasidim. A mentality which in many aspects suits this text much more than the mentality of printed books. It is more than a curiosity that some of our greatest philologists were prone to detective literature, whodunits, a la Agatha Christie. In this genre, a limited number of suspects are enclosed in one space, a castle or a Russian train. No one enters, no one leaves. One of the suspects lies, but for a noble motive, and eventually is not the murderer, but the least accepted candidate is the butler. In our case, Menachem Butler. This is how these scholars saw genealogical philology as well. The different versions all are witnesses of the text, and all must be connected through a family resemblance, which, we know today, lies in the eyes of the beholder. The best metaphor to describe the way we see it today, exemplified in the papers by Ivan Marcus, in Balbul Ben Yitzhak, and most recently, provocatively, by Daniel Abrams, is not of a Trans-Siberian train, but a Parisian metro line, with thousands of people embarking and descending at each stop and crossing paths with dozens of other such lines. This extremely internet user's mentality is not limited today to philology, but is shared by examinations of historical, cultural, and literary interactions as well, and came to be identified with the buzzwords entanglement, transnational, hybridity, etc. I think that this is what the organizers had in mind with the title Sefer Hasidim in Context. A nexus of intersections diachronic and synchronic as well. I believe that this conference bears witness that such an approach suits Sefer Hasidim and its creators much more than the view of the history as stable and fixed with a limited number of intersections. I wish to propose yet another framework or intersection in which we can pin Sefer Hasidim, one that might put it in context with other early 13th century phenomena, Jewish and non-Jewish alike. Disclosure, I examined the topic through the lens of my own recent research dealing with languages in the Middle Ages. Hence, the prism through which I wish to see Sefer Hasidim is that of the European literature's gradual shift from Latin to the vernacular. Though the subject was extensively studied, its implication to Jewish studies are far from being exhaustive. The rise of the vernacular is not merely marked by writing in vernacular languages, German, French, Catalan, Provençal, etc., but it represents as well the possibility of a spoken culture, of oral tradition to be put down to writing. Oral tradition here does not necessarily means ancient or esoteric, nor is it opposed to high culture or deemed popular, but it does mark a broader spectrum of beliefs, social strata, and tradition than those being written down in Latin. More so, it also represents oral activities, teachings, preaching, discourse, dialogue, and performance.
It means Yiddish.
And means, from where I stand, it's Germano-Hebrew. After becoming people of the book, to paraphrase the apt title of Tariq Fishman's book, putting the Babylonian Talmud at the center of Jewish culture and reclaiming back the Bible from Christian hand in the 12th century, the turn of the 13th century is marked by the writing of oral activities. Jewish intellectual product, though still most of it in Hebrew, went vernacular. We can mark several such products which are oral activities put down to writing. I'll start with the less obvious. The collection of responsa, according to authors or subjects, in collection of halachic works and other collections, transforms a correspondence, in medieval terms, a dialogue, into literature. Another example are the Tosafot, being edited and collected. This text represents as well a live dialogue in the classroom, written down in the form of a cross-generational, cross-geographical conversation, imitating the Talmud indeed, but being written down and collected in the turn of the 13th century. Last, the 13th century sees the appearance in writing of Theosophic Kabbalah, faced with objection of writing down oral teaching. Whether there's a historical reality behind it or not, even the Zohar picked up the Midrashic genre, presenting homilies preached by the sages while walking out in the open. Coming back to Sefer Hasidim, we are surprised to meet out of the blue this unprecedented literature. Without undermining Chaim Soloveitchik's explanation of the rise of Hasidei Ashkenaz from opposition to the Tosafist, the new mental ability to put down to writing a spoken culture embodied in the European rise of vernacular literature binds all these movements together. It also provides a framework for some of the unique traits we find in Sefer Hasidim and explored in this conference. The manner in which the book was composed, the oral teachings of Yehuda Hasid, small Lego bricks written separately, the prominent place of folklore in general, and even German one in particular. The book stands as moral feature to followers, students, and even the public, even if there weren't any public. The writing down of the Torah tradition, especially by Elazar Bones, all can be seen under the horizon of spoken culture and activities being put down to writing. Even Rabbi Yehuda Hasid, reluctant to sign his name to a text, could gain a new understanding by an oral, spoken mentality. In an oral performance, the relation between speaker and content is self-evident and needs not to be declared out loud. Hence, the act of announcing authorship seems vain, rude, and inappropriate. So in a way, it's not ownership that he opposes, but authorship. I believe that the rise of the vernacular as a new medium between the oral and the written is not merely another framework to understand Sefer Hasidim, but can also serve as a methodological tool to bring new insights into the book, its author and readers. I wish to thank you once again for a wonderful conference.
That's a hard lead to follow. First and foremost, I want to ask you to focus on two facts. Number one, for most of the conferences, sessions, we had around 60 people in the room. That is probably larger than the circle of Hasidei Ashkenaz ever was, definitely first generation. So that's something to ponder on. The second thing I want to highlight is the interest. The fact that we had such a crowd during the last few days tells us how much interest Sefer Hasidim still generates, even 100 years into the scholarship and after we thought everything was written about it. So it's another thought that I think we can all kind of think about before we wrap up and start thinking of Sefer Hasidim too. Usually, one prepares concluding remarks after one reads all the papers presented in the conference, and I had the privilege of receiving most of them, almost all of them, before, but I confess I decided to enjoy the presentations and not spoil my intellectual joy of having the presenters not only read, but also perform their papers, and as of all of you have noticed, there was performance here, and it was important and engaging. Unlike my two fellow panelists, I share with our chair, Elisheva, the vantage point of the organizer. I can compare the intentions of the original plans all three E's had with the outcome, and not only hypothesize about what the organizers thought would eventually happen. I know, and now I know that Micha spoke about language and orality and the textual aspects. I want to invoke the inverted pyramid kind of model that Ivan pitched on the first day and use that also in my talk. I'm going to move from the very broad concepts to something very concrete, the locality. And I think this is something that I've been thinking about over the past few days and wondering about, and I think it kind of goes through most of the papers that we discussed, and Micha kind of hinted to it, and I want to push it a bit further. As all of us assembled here know, I've been very busy with the story of the migration, the move, the shift from the Rhineland to Regensburg of the Kalanamite families, and I've suggested some ideas about it. Many of the lectures delivered in this fabulous gathering have a strong bearing on this issue, either direct or indirect. The migration ties into the ongoing discussion about the relationship between hagiography, the exempla tales, the miracle tales, the historical traditions written by rabbis in prose in response to literature in the 16th century, and I refer to the Maharshal, Rabbi Luria of Poland, in and of itself a migrant society, a society on the move, a society that's trying to reestablish itself in a new realm, and thinking about its past, trying to see what it can kind of take from its past and put it into its present and preferably into its future. So in this respect, I tie also into what Yaakov Elvoim said and Moshe Chechik about the livelihood of Sefer Hasidim, or maybe not, in Poland in the 16th century. But I feel that the migration story is about the move to Regensburg, and the move to Regensburg was highlighted and touched upon in Eli Yassif's talk, in Dudu Rockman's, and in Lucia's. The move to Regensburg ties also into a larger discussion about the movement in space that Ahuva was talking about, and to me that also was a very important point. It also ties into the inner migrations within the German realm, the ideas that Reiner was trying to kind of forward, that we're talking about something much larger. The opening of the East, the gates to the East. Magdeburg and Regensburg is gates to the East, that Jews are part and parcel of this huge wave of moving towards the East and trying to colonize the East and appropriate the East into the German Empire, taking the realm further into Austria and further into Bohemia. The expansion of settlement of the German Empire, the Regum Teutonicum, beyond Magdeburg and beyond Regensburg, as well as the questions of what were the driving forces out of the Rhineland, are important as much as what were the pulling forces towards Regensburg as a rising mercantile Jewish community. As Lady Israel Tashma and Rami Reiner mentioned, and Ephraim Shoham-Steiner also mentioned in this conference, the Kalanymites were not alone in their migration to the east, to Regensburg. There were other rabbinical figures who did the same. Although there was a rising Jewish community in this locale before the 12th century, it was during the 12th century that Regensburg rose to a considerable height, with the building, especially with the building of the Steinerne Brücke, the famous bridge that basically turned it into a very, very important commercial hub. The Stone Bridge and the rise of the Danube commerce with a constant expansion towards the east. In this conference, Rami suggested, and I really took this to heart, that Sefer Hasidim is a personal religious diary, above and beyond many other things, that Judah the Pious prescribed in an attempt to better himself, confronting his own weaknesses, his own inner demons. And besides the sexual aspects that were discussed both today and in the session about the social history in Sefer Hasidim, especially with relation to what Eyal was talking about and hinted also in Judith's talk. I believe that if we look into the issues that Yehuda Hasid was raising in Sefer Hasidim, if we follow Rami's checklist, honor, money, and Christianity are very important issues that register for him and are issues that he needs to wrestle with. These are his inner demons, as Rami kind of put it there. These are seductive elements to Judah. And indeed, Susan and other scholars today have shown how Judah is very clearly aware of the pastoral and monastic trends of his time and makes a clear attempt to incorporate them with a Jewish twist into his own teaching. The question is, can these matters also be tied to the migration? Many scholars of Sefer Hasidim underline and highlight the fact that in many ways the late 12th and early 13th century Sefer Hasidim is one of the last homiletic midrashic texts. The last one that is not exegetical. This is a tradition that is dying out. It was very present in the first millennia after the destruction of the temple and first millennia of Christianity, and it's waning down towards the 12th and 13th century. And Sefer Hasidim still does homiletics in the sense that it tries to understand Scripture in a way that is different from exegesis. While both Rashi, who studied in the Rhenish academies, as well as his grandson, Rabbi Shmuel ben Meir, Rashbam, and the 12th century Yosef Bechol Shol, have already set the stage for biblical exegesis and this kind of literature, which is markedly different from homiletic midrashic writing. Rabbi Judah the Pious worked differently, both in his numerous passages in Sefer Hasidim, as well as in the collected teaching and exegetical writing on the Pentateuch and the Haftarot that were collected, meticulously collected by his son, Rabbi Moshe Zaltman, and extant in two complete manuscripts, the Cambridge manuscript and the Moscow Ginsburg manuscript, published in 1975, also stirring quite a bit of commotion because of some of the ideas projected in these exegetical or homiletic ideas. Judah is very much an avid homilist, a darshan. He also has some of his descendants still being called darshanim. His grandson or great-grandson, and this is a matter of debate, as I've discussed with Sal, is called Elazar HaDarshan. So there's something about doing and writing and thinking in a midrashic way that is very typical of Judah himself. And when thinking and talking about homiletics, I don't only refer to quotes from the midrash, as Rashi does, and other exegetes, but also creating new midrashim, and used this method of homiletics, conflating, juxtaposing biblical verses together in an attempt to homilize. One of the things that struck me about the material brought forth by Adam was how important this was in 12th century Regensburg. And to what extent, again, and this is something that Micha just mentioned, the attempt during the 12th century to reclaim the Bible back from Christians through exegesis, and I think in Yehuda Hasid's mind also through homiletics, and how these two modes correspond with different trends and different ideas, different intellectual thrusts within the Christian community. The Regensburg illuminated manuscripts that Adam had shown us that were produced in this period, in this city, were of a pivotal role, and homiletics play a very, very important role in them. And they revolve around the corpus of the Old Testament with what he described as a less belligerent attitude towards Jews. In other words, there's still an open door for dialogue. By the 13th century, this will change. The work of the 12th century local theologian Honorius in Regensburg in the first half of the 12th century, and the tradition that he inspired that lasted until the early 13th century, seems to be not completely removed from the techniques that Judah himself was employing in his exegesis. And I think this ties in with other things that I've just been discussing with Eva over this morning, how the local population, the local Christian population envisions the Jews, how it sees the Jews, as this is reflected, for instance, in the charters, the 1182 charter, which is paramount to our understanding of how Jewish life bolsters in Regensburg during the time that I think, at least, the migration occurred, not at the end of the 12th century, rather in the second half of the 12th century. So this may be the driving force, or the pulling, not the driving force out of the Rhineland, but rather the pull into Regensburg specifically. And all these kind of bring me to a larger conclusion. I think that in many ways, emulating synagogue, for many years, and this is something I share with Elizabeth, one of my partners in the E crowd, we've been trying to look beyond Shum. We've been trying to look at other communities beyond Shum. We are kind of, our eyes are tight like synagogue with the guys that Shum communities have been trying to pitch us as central and all the rest as periphery. And I think we should maybe re-examine this attitude. We should look differently and go to the localities, look at the specific of the local traditions, see the interactions on a local level, and in that respect, see Sefer Hasidim for what it is. In many ways, it's a local enterprise by a person who probably, either he or his father, decided to migrate to this area because of something that was going on there and was imperative and important to his understanding of what the world should look like. Again, I thank you all for participating. I thank you all for taking part in this. I'm wondering, again, what Lucia said yesterday, of how the hagiography came to be and what it means that a community lasted into the early 16th century that created this kernel of evidence that we have, even if it's local tradition and may not be all true or historically true, but what it means about all the other communities that did not deliver us with such a bundle. How is Regensburg different? Maybe it's not different. Maybe other communities have similar kinds of bundles that have just never reached us because of their circumstances. So in this respect, we're lucky because we can have another example away from the Rhineland that can enable us to negotiate this issue and give us a perspective, give us a perspective for comparison. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you to all three panelists who gave us such different and varied and really such rich perspectives of what we've done. I want to, in the moments we have left, open the floor for comments. If anyone wants to make questions, problems they think we should have focused on and didn't, problems we focused on and didn't find solutions that satisfy them. So if anyone wants to jump in first, I'm sure afterwards there will be others who have what to say. First brave person. Anyone?
Thank you.
I just say as a student, it's a tremendous honor. It's been an incredible opportunity to meet the people in the field. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for being so welcoming and helpful.
That gave us 30 seconds.
Anyone?
Okay.
Well, Alicia, you, first of all, you said you were going to read a quote at the end.
I will.
But it might be interesting to hear you say a few words, again, from your perspective as an organizer. Effie alluded to it, but he didn't really go into how post facto the conference looked based on what you thought it would look like.
I think plans are usually just the beginning, for what becomes much better. So I think from my perspective, at least, this was over and above anything that I imagined it could be. And it gave so many new ideas and questions to think about. I think one of the things that will trouble me in the days to come, or that I'd like to think about, has to do with how do the definitions we come in with change as we went through the conference, and in what ways did we reinforce ideas we already had, and to what extent, and this was something I thought about a lot when I was into the papers, did the preconceptions each of us wrote our paper with, then determine what we had to say. So I think we talked about a lot of different tensions here. Micha called them dichotomies or tensions, and I think really the difference between a dichotomy and tension is very, very important. And I think our attempts to make this book both a topic of intellectual history, if I was going history, and if I was speaking in other fields, I would probably use other words, and to talk about social history and the society in which this was written, and the ideas that Rabbi Yehuda or Elazar or their anonymous students or whoever it is that we're talking about came with when they were writing. Those are really things that work simultaneously. And I think it's very hard at a conference to take apart and put back together again. So I think that our three panelists have done a wonderful job, both taking apart and trying to reassemble. And probably each of us walks out with a different way of reassembling the pieces. So I really think that's something we can look forward to and think about and see it in writing also, as each of us goes and writes different things that we thought about on the way. So I guess that I would stop there right now. Okay, was there someone else who wanted to say something?
I'm not the only, I'm not going to be the first.
You're not the first, you're already the fourth.
No, not the, okay. One issue, I don't know, this came to my mind was what I would like to have discussed a little bit further, but under a different rubric. In a way, it was already somehow always in the room, but and it's always to some extent addressed. But if we categorize this, what I mean, as customs, I was wondering about the role of customs at the time of Sefer Hasidim with regard to Sefer Hasidim. So essentially, we have heard about folklore, we have heard about different genre, we spoke about open text, but there is also another genre, and it's not even written down. So it's kind of the way how people were living, and this is another aspect that was in the room all the time, but I would like to make it more precise with regard to, let's say, we know all about customs to an extent. Maharaj is talking about customs that he is dealing with, that he has to deal with, that he is not happy about. What about customs and the role and the power of these time of Sefer Hasidim.
Thank you. Someone else?
So how it affected practices afterwards, to what extent it affected how people practiced, non-pietists.
This isn't anything serious, so I don't know if it's worthwhile. It's a point of information. In 21st century Christian evangelical circles in the United States, I don't know if everybody knows this, there's a prophecy that they found somewhere that they attribute to Judah the Pious.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Died in 1217.
You're not going to believe this, but someone actually called me before the conference.
Really?
Honestly.
So there's a whole other,
The prophecy is
not
that
included
Judah
in the
Hasid gave a very exact date
for when Jesus' second coming will.
when Jesus' second coming will occur, and not only that, that he pinpointed the establishment of the state of Israel
Exactly.
precisely to
It's based on the
1948.
cycle of Yovlot, the 50-year
Yes,
period.
yes.
And this is all over the place in
Yes.
the Christian evangelical
Yes.
world.
Yes.
So this is a point of information that we did not cover, but maybe we could.
That may also provide us with serious financial.
But do you have his second?
Oh, you didn't say. Soon. It's
Okay, Elizabeth.
Just one idea to share. When we were sitting over the planning of this conference so many times, I think there was not a topic attached to Sefer Hasidim that didn't come up as one on our wish list. I think if we had what we wanted, we could stay here for another 2 weeks and keep on talking and finding very interesting points and getting deeper into things. But having everybody here for a while and having everybody interact is maybe only the beginning, and we will go to wherever we will go and still continue to cooperate. It does work across at least the Mediterranean and the Alps, so I guess we're not that far away from each other in the time of internet.
Okay, so I think I will just end, and we'll end on time, something I like to do. So I think I'll just end with reading these few lines that Gideman once again writes in his Tziyun, when he tries to explain Mekom HaMechaber, Dmut HaMechaber u'Mekomo. I think that's how he phrases it. So he says like this, and I'm just reading 3 or 4 lines, and we'll leave it with that. ספר חסידים הוא ממין הספרים אשר פעם ופעם ייקחו מהם דברים, ולפעמים גם עניינים שלמים, ולעיתים רחוקות יקראום עד תומם, אבל לעולם לא ילמדו לדעתם דעת ברורה. Thank you very much.